Behind an 8-metre-high city wall, the houses were haphazardly piled up. The streets were narrow, winding and unsewered. Garbage was burnt outside the house when it wasn't simply left on the road. 3-storey buildings jostled with single-storey ones, and none of the houses was aligned with its neighbours. Their facades had no openings, just low doors and a few air vents, in order to keep the interior cool and to keep the dust clouds out. For a long time, little was known of life in Ur. Leonard Woolley had spent years excavating the ruins when, in 1926, he discovered what was dubbed the Death Pit. It was the tomb of Queen Puabi and of more than 20 servants and soldiers who were sacrificed and buried with her in order to serve her in the afterlife. Among the skeletons covered in gold and silver, Woolley found this, the so-called Standard of Ur. Its mother-of-pearl figures show Sumerian fishermen, slaves and soldiers walking for eternity against a sky of lapis lazuli. Like stills from a movie, its amazingly detailed panels show war chariots crushing the enemy. Or the frozen smile of a scribe having a drink with friends. In the arid desert that now surrounds the site, the traces of the past are still visible. When they found the ruins of Sumerian dams on this barren land, several kilometres from the rivers, 19th century archaeologists faced an enigma. How had people lived in this desert, so far from the source of water? The desert city of Nippur, 250 kilometres south of Baghdad. The ruins of a temple rise above the dunes. It was during excavations of this site that archaeologists found the key to the enigma. This clay tablet is a map of Nippur. It shows the exact locations of the temple and the city wall. The Euphrates ran to the west of the wall. It had been diverted to supply the city with water. The cities had therefore been built beside the water. But changes in landform and the sheer force of the floodwaters changed the course of the rivers. Satellite images help us reconstruct the map of this part of the world as it was 5,000 years ago. Nippur, Uruk, Gisu and Ur, the main cities of the Sumerian civilization, evolved in a vastly different landscape. At that time, the Tigris and the Euphrates ran through much of Mesopotamia as a single river. They separated only downstream from Nippur. Sunrise over ancient Ur. It is midsummer, and the day will be scorchingly hot. Slowly the city comes to life. People slept on their rooftops, which were much cooler at night than the small rooms of their houses. Ancient texts listing real estate sales show that the house's floor space was less than 70 square metres. In the early morning, people come onto the streets. Merchants try to entice the passers-by. They try to do business while the day is still cool. In the courtyards of some houses, men relax and drink beer through straws. Several ancient texts refer to the Sumerian temperament. The Sumerians' exposure to the hazards of nature made them conscious of the brevity and fragility of life. In the streets, men often wear konaks, wrap-around sheepskin skirts that go from the waist to the knees or ankles, depending on the season and fashion. The wives of dignitaries wear colourful, lighter garments. Both men and women wear jewellery, earrings, bracelets and necklaces. Archaeologists have discovered that forgers operating in the walled city could replicate gold and turquoise. People who couldn't afford real jewellery could buy and wear fancy fakes. This neighbourhood was home to merchants, shopkeepers and traders. The homes of the scribes, masons and carpenters and the slaves' houses were all within a short distance of the temple. The treasures discovered in Ur are enormously important for archaeologists. They reveal Sumerian customs, and they demonstrate the quality of the craftsman's work. Sumerian goldsmiths had mastered the techniques of chiselling and soldering gold. The bull's head on this harp has eyes of lapis lazuli turned towards eternity. The harp itself is decorated with shells and precious stones. For their last journey with their queen, the servants wore a spectacular diadem of gold bands and precious stones. A braiding of beech leaves covered the brow, and above the head rose 3 golden flowers. The gold, used also in cups and ceremonial weapons, as well as the lapis lazuli and turquoise, all came from the east. The mother of pearl and the shells came from Bahrain. The raw material used to make this billy goat shows how prosperous Ur was and how thriving its trade. Archaeologists have traced the origins of some of its materials. To get the lapis lazuli, the Sumerians sent their caravans 3,000 kilometres to the Badakhshan mountains, in what is now northern Pakistan. Peshawar, the merchant city in northern Pakistan. This rough lapis lazuli has been shipped from Afghanistan. Splashing water on the stones brings out the intense blue that fascinated the Sumerians. Archaeologists have established that the lapis lazuli trade began with the Sumerian civilization, 3,500 years before Christ. 3,000 years before the Silk Road, the Sumerians had opened up the trade routes that crisscrossed the east.